I stopped arguing with my wife after she told me, "You always make things worse when you talk." So I went silent, started watching everything she was doing, then the man she was hiding got caught for fraud at my company. She looked at me and said, "You ruined everything." Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Wherever you're watching from, I hope you're having a good day or a peaceful night. Today's story is about betrayal, cheating, and a secret that was never meant to be exposed. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels heavy, like something is sitting in the room with you, watching, waiting, and I didn't understand that kind of silence until I stopped arguing with my wife and she smiled like she had finally won. My name is Alaric Boone, and if you had asked me a year ago what my life looked like, I would have told you it was stable, predictable, maybe even boring in a good way. I had a decent job in logistics, a quiet house in a suburban neighborhood, and a wife, Marin, who everyone described as calm, patient, and easy to live with, and for a long time, I believed that too. The arguments didn't start loud, they never do, they start small, like questions that feel like accusations, like why I got home late, why I didn't answer my phone, why I looked tired all the time, and at first, I explained, I defended myself, I tried to keep things balanced, but over time, something changed, not in her, but in me. I got tired. Tired of explaining, tired of defending, tired of feeling like every conversation was a test I didn't know I was failing. So one night, after another quiet, cutting argument that ended with her saying, "You always make things worse when you talk," I just stopped. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't walk out, I didn't argue back, I just nodded, sat down, and let the silence take over. And that was the moment everything changed. At first, she seemed confused, like she was waiting for me to react, to push back, to fight for my side, but I didn't, I just became quiet, not cold, not distant, just quiet. I answered when necessary, I listened when she spoke, but I stopped giving her pieces of me. And she liked it. That was the part that should have scared me. She started smiling more, cooking more, even laughing again, like the tension between us had finally disappeared, like the silence I created was peace, but it wasn't peace, it was distance, and she didn't realize that distance was growing into something she couldn't control. Because when I stopped talking, I started observing. Little things at first, like how she always angled her phone away when texting, how she'd leave the room to take certain calls, how she suddenly cared more about how she looked even on random afternoons, things that didn't prove anything on their own, but together, they started forming a pattern. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. So I stopped asking questions, and I started paying attention. I noticed the name Corvin appear more often on her phone, always followed by short replies, always during moments she thought I wasn't looking. I noticed how she'd go quiet when I entered the room, how she'd suddenly smile at nothing like she was replaying something in her head. That silence she thought was peace gave her confidence. And that confidence made her careless. One evening, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she stepped out to take a call, something she never did before, and for a moment, I just stared at it, not because I wanted to invade her privacy, but because I already knew what I was going to find. And I was right. Messages, weeks of them, maybe months, conversations that started harmless and turned into something else entirely, late-night talks, inside jokes, plans to meet, and then the part that didn't just hurt, it shifted something inside me completely. They weren't just talking. They were planning a future. Without me. I didn't confront her. Not that night, not the next day, not even the week after. Instead, I went deeper. Because buried in those messages was something else, something bigger than betrayal, something that explained why she had suddenly become so calm when I stopped fighting. She thought she had already replaced me. But what she didn't know was that Corvin wasn't just some random man. He was connected to my work. A contractor we had recently started dealing with, someone who had access to financial information, project bids, internal timelines, and suddenly, everything made sense in a way that made my stomach turn. This wasn't just an affair. It was a setup. They weren't just planning a life together, they were planning to use me first, extract what they could from my position, and then disappear, leaving me to deal with whatever damage was left behind. That was the moment the silence changed again. Because it stopped being passive. It became intentional. I started documenting everything, screenshots, emails, timestamps. I cross-checked company data, flagged unusual access logs, and quietly reported inconsistencies to a compliance officer I trusted without revealing everything just yet. At home, I stayed the same. Quiet, calm, predictable. Exactly what she thought I had become. Weeks passed, and she grew even more comfortable, even more careless. She started staying out later, giving weaker excuses, acting like I was already gone even though I was still sitting right across from her at dinner. Then came the night she told me she needed space. That word always comes with a script, and I already knew how it ended. So I nodded. Again. No argument. No reaction. Just silence. But this time, I had already set everything in motion. 2 days later, my company launched an internal investigation. Corvin was flagged first, unauthorized data access, suspicious communications, and financial inconsistencies. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. And when it did, her name came up too. Not as an employee, but as someone connected to the breach. That's when the silence finally broke. She came home early that day, her face pale, her hands shaking, asking questions I didn't answer, pacing the living room like she was trying to outrun something that had already caught up to her. "Did you know?" she asked. I looked at her for a long moment, then said the first real sentence I had spoken to her in weeks. "I knew enough." That was when she understood. But not everything. Not yet. Because the part she didn't know was that I had saved everything. Every message, every plan, every detail of how they intended to use me and leave me behind. And I made sure it didn't just stay between us. When the investigation escalated, those messages became evidence. Clear, undeniable, impossible to explain away. That was the moment her confidence finally shattered. She stopped pretending, stopped acting calm, stopped smiling. And for the first time in months, she looked at me the way I used to look at her, like everything was slipping out of her hands and she didn't know how to stop it. "You ruined everything," she said, her voice breaking. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how backwards it sounded. I didn't ruin anything, I just stopped protecting her. The following weeks were messy in ways she never expected. Corvin was arrested, the charges stacking up one after another. And once investigators connected everything, her involvement couldn't be ignored. She wasn't taken away in handcuffs, but she was pulled into questioning, her name tied to something far bigger than she ever thought it would become. And word spreads fast. Friends stopped calling. People she trusted started keeping their distance. The same calm image she built for years collapsed quietly, just like everything else. At home, there was no pretending anymore, no fake peace. Just two people living in the aftermath of something that couldn't be undone. The night before I moved out, she tried one last time. Not angry, not defensive. Just desperate. She sat across from me, the same way we used to during dinner, but this time her voice was softer, almost unfamiliar. "Why didn't you fight for us?" she asked. That question lingered in the air longer than anything else she had ever said. And for a moment, I thought about answering it the way she wanted, something emotional, something that made it seem like there was still something left to save. But there wasn't. "I did," I said quietly. She looked confused. "When it mattered," I continued, "when I still believed you were on my side." Her eyes filled, but I didn't stop. "I stopped fighting when I realized I was the only one trying to keep something alive that you had already decided to replace." That was the truth she couldn't argue with. The next morning, I packed what I needed and left without looking back. No dramatic goodbye. No final argument, just silence. The same silence she once thought meant peace. Months later, I heard updates through people we both used to know, how she tried to rebuild, how things never really went back to the way they were, how some mistakes follow you longer than you expect. And me. I moved on quietly, not perfectly. Not instantly, but steadily. Because in the end, I understood something I hadn't before. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes, it's clarity. Sometimes, it's control. And sometimes, it's the moment you stop giving someone access to you. She thought the silence meant peace. But by the time she realized what it really meant, I was already gone. Silence doesn't end relationships. It reveals the ones that were already broken. Do you think I handled it the right way, or should I have exposed her earlier? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched you in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories like this. Thank you for listening.